and welcome back to the All Out Brits Podcast, the podcast where we send the house on all things NFL from across the seas here in sunny old England. And as always, it's been an action-packed week in the NFL. We saw more quarterback changes than we did points in the Vikings game, and we saw more tears from the Chiefs fans than we did Taylor Swift stills. So we know that it had a lot going on, and we know that there will be a lot to talk about. And as always, joining me in all the fun and all the things that we have to discuss today is the main man, Mr. Elliot Greenwood. How are you doing, my friend?
Mate, as always, doing absolutely splendid. It's been a week in the NFL, like you said. There's been lots going on. Some really, really good games, some really, really bad games. But we have been treated nonetheless. And talking about treats, sir, it's coming up to the season of Christmas, the season of gift giving. And in that vein, I bought you a little Christmas present.
You're a liar.
I'm not. So it's actually quite a nice one. I bought one for everyone in your house as well. A little San Francisco 49ers Christmas ornament.
Ah, look at that. No
look
way.
how nice it is. And we've got a Bills one for the other guy. And we've got a Jags one as well. So you can put them all on your Christmas tree, mate.
Wow. How kind. What a start to that is, mate. That is so lovely of you.
I just thought it would be all festive. It's getting to the time, isn't it? When, like, what, 1-2 weeks? Well, less than 2 weeks away from Christmas now. It's getting have you got all your Christmas shopping done, Taran?
I have indeed. Again, we were talking off air about your present. It is arriving from the States, so it might take a while. We can't trust them at the moment. As we know, not all the Americans are delivering at the moment, especially when it comes to NFL terms. So God forbid when it comes to the gifts and everything like that. But yeah, I'm hoping we can get it all sorted and stashed away, but we'll have to find out on Christmas Day when Santa comes and drops it off to you.
Exciting time of the year, though, isn't it? Really exciting.
It is indeed.
Hopefully some of the games live up to the hype next week then, because this week...
Hopefully they do.
Right.
Well, as you said, we will be kicking off and we will be getting it going. You can talk about all the good, bad and ugly that we've seen this week. And we're going to kick off in a way that not many people would expect when it comes to NFL matches. And that is in 2-minute drill to get everything on the board as fast as we can. As always, Elliot's going to run through it and give you a full brief of everything that we had going on. And even better this week, we've got all the scores for you to see whilst you're watching this podcast. If you're listening, you'll just have to imagine seeing them instead. So shall we get kicked off into 2-minute drill?
Bro, ready when you are. Let's go.
I think the cadence might be a bit rough today, so see if we can get an offside. 180 set.
Right, there we go. Starting off. Oh, bro, let's just look at the graphic. There we go. Steelers versus the Pats. Zappy had an absolute day. 3 touchdowns for him. What a player. But what they also did, the Patriots, getting it done. Zeke got it going. But don't lose to the Pats, Steelers. Don't lose to the Pats. What are you doing? Jets versus the Texans. Wilson surprisingly looked really, really, really solid. 301 yards for him, 2 touchdowns. But Stroud was dog. 10 of 23, 91 yards. He kind of regressed so much from what we'd seen previously. Hopefully, he can turn it around next week. Ravens versus the Rams. Rams win with a walk-off punt return touchdown. Wow. Not seen that in ages. But the Rams, the Rams players, they're good fantasy assets now looking forward. But like I say, the Ravens getting it done. Saints versus the Panthers. Not much to say, really. Changing Carolina at head coach hasn't really done anything there. Panthers still dog. Bengals versus the Colts. Bengals, Browning, brilliant. Absolute great move for him. Mixon also getting it done on the ground. But Chase getting it done. But not Jamar Chase. Chase Brown, 80 yards, 3 catches and a touchdown for him. Falcons versus the Bucks. Bucks win and go top of the someone's got to win it NFC South. Moving on, Browns versus the Jags. Flacco is up here. Lawrence is down here. 3 interceptions, 3 touchdowns for Lawrence. Not looking like a good QB. But the tight ends for both teams getting it done. 2 touchdowns for Njoku. 2 touchdowns for Evan Ingram. And it was just a good day to be a tight end in that game. Browns versus the Lions. The Lions are playoff pretenders. Goff has started to play bad at the wrong time. Fields, though, he looked very, very good on the ground and in the air. 280 yards, 2 touchdowns. Looked very, very solid. Niners versus the Hawks. Mr. Sidhu, I'm sure you'll have lots of things to say about this one, but Locke looked very good in the first half, the first quarter, but then Brock does what he does. He gets the ball to the players that are good. Touching 150 for CMC, touching 150 for Debo. It's coming. that one seed in the NFC now for the Niners as well. You're not getting it, bro. You're not getting it. Let's not even pretend, bro. Raiders versus the Vikings. Wow. Vikings win it. I'll tell you what. The defenses, bro. The defenses look good.
Game for defense, are they?
Good day to be on the defense. Terrible day to be on the offense. Broncos versus the Chargers. Broncos just keep grinding and getting those W's. But obviously, Herbert going down. No fun for him. And no fun for the Chargers for the rest of the season. No Herbert. He's out now. Moving on. Chiefs versus the Bills. Allen gets it done. But Mahomes, little boy, crying. You're crying because your team broke the rules. What are you playing at, mate? You're rubbish yourself. Just touching over 50% completion. He's had a very much an off-season, Patrick Mahomes. Giants versus Green Bay. Danny DeVito. Is he the new Dobbs? Is he the Italian man himself? But is he also playing the New York Giants out of potentially getting Caleb Williams? So we'll see. And then Dolphins versus the Titans. Unbelievable finish to this game. 14 points up with the Dolphins with 4 minutes and change left on the clock. They just scored a touchdown. Everyone was celebrating in the end zone. Everyone was giving it a bit of a boogie. And then the ball goes in the hands of the rookie Will Levis, and he absolutely carved it up. First with a garbage time touchdown, then a 2-point conversion. Then they gave the ball to King Henry, and he got it done on the ground. Titans with a very, very, very impressive win. And then finally, Tom, the game of the week. Now, everybody said Cowboys can't beat a team over 500. Cowboys can't beat a team with a winning record. And what did? We didn't beat the Eagles. We demolished the Philadelphia Eagles, taking the 1 spot in the NFC East, the 2 spot in the NFC. I'll tell you what, the fight for that 1 seed is going down right to the wire. Cowboys get it done over the Eagles. And what a week of NFL action, Aaron.
What a week indeed. And beautifully summed up by yourself as always. The points that we needed, especially when it comes to this week in action. And as you perfectly led into the Cowboys versus the Eagles, a lot has been going on in the NFC. We've mentioned it many times now. This is the division to watch. Whilst the AFC can't make their mind up on what they're going to have for dinner, the NFC is scranning, cooking, doing everything, cleaning everything up. And it's the division to keep your eyes on, definitely. And it was a matchup, like you mentioned there, that everyone had the Cowboys down as maybe struggling in. I had them down that the Eagles would bounce back after being beat by the Niners. But the Cowboys said, anything the Niners can do, we'll copy you because you are our daddy. And they did that. Not as good as the Niners did it, but they still got it done. Elliot, how did it go down? How happy were you when you woke up and saw the absolute demolishing that had gone on in the night before?
Bro, it was beautiful. I can't describe how happy I was when I woke up. When I woke up on Monday morning, I thought, what an absolute complete performance that was. Dak Prescott had a really good game, and interestingly, came out after the game as well and said that he could have been better, and he could have been. And in past seasons, this would have been one of Dak's best games, but because of the standards that he set himself for this season, he's been superb, and that's why he's kind of criticising himself. But for me, still the front runner for MVP. It was absolutely sensational. Eagles, on the other hand, were absolutely terrible. The offense, just 2 field goals for them. One of them coming off, was it a fake punt, I believe?
Yeah,
fake punt. One of them coming off that, and then a touchdown coming off a scoop and score off a Dak Prescott fumble. But other than that, they weren't very good at all. They just didn't get it done. And Stephon Gilmore for the Cowboys on defense made AJ Brown his bitch, and it was so good to see. Because there's been a lot of talk about corners on the Cowboys, specifically Deron Bland, and early in the season, Diggs when he went down. And Stephon Gilmore's gone under the radar. He's had a very, very, very good season in the secondary for Dallas. And interestingly, something that kind of the Cowboys did, which I wanted them to do for a long time, was kind of put pressure on those wide receivers, step up and not let them have easy slants and kind of pin them to the line. And that's what they did. And that's what Stephon Gilmore did. 9 tackles for him on the day. And he was very, 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 very solid. And all around, like I say, Cowboys got it done, and they look really, really good. And they're getting good at the right time. They're getting talented at the right time, heading towards the playoffs. And I can see them going deep. I can see when Dak's got that MVP, I can also see him getting a ring around his finger this season. And I do reckon it'll be the Niners versus the Cowboys in the championship game this season. What do you think, Aaron?
I do agree with that. I agree that the Niners will definitely be late on into the championship game, go further to the Super Bowl. But I don't think we'll be meeting you there because at some point, the Cowboys always find a way to mess it up. There's always somewhere bigger and badder. There's always a Dak Prescott game where he forgets his underwear at home, hits the skids and starts throwing balls in places where he shouldn't. And it just goes awry for the Cowboys. But you talked it through there very well. And, it's one of those seasons where we haven't been able to predict anything that's going to happen. I think after last season's Super Bowl, we just thought the Chiefs were going to come back and run it down. We same thought, about the Eagles that they'd come back, run it down, and it wouldn't even be a competition. And for most parts, it did look like that. But, it's really becoming so much more interesting. Like you mentioned there, everyone's playing good football, everything's going well. And that game, it was quite a surprise. I think, as you said, no touchdowns, no INTs for Jalen Hurts. And I think the worst thing for me is looking at a few of the stats. It said that the Eagles are the first team to have won over 8 games and be over 500, and then lost back-to-back games by 20 points for over 40 years. And the team who did that before them was the Cowboys. So, maybe they've just been copying and, following your guys. But it was a game that I'm sure you were happy about. And it was a game, nonetheless, that I think had a lot of impact on the division, especially with the seedings. And as you mentioned, the Niners, boys in red, back on top, number 1. But we'll move on then from a game that was high-scoring, a game that was enjoyable, to quite possibly the worst game ever televised, some would argue. It was a game that I couldn't believe. It was on a weekend where, for the first time since the 80s, there was 2 matchups that went to halftime scoreless. So, as much as we said it was an action-packed week, there was also Fuller's dishwater at the same time. And the Raiders. What on earth happened there, Mr. Greenwood?
The defense has showed up. That's pretty much all we can say. It was I think it's hard to call that a game. It was a matchup between 2 teams, I think is what we'll call it. Obviously, Dobbs getting benched. But I want to read, I've had to jot down a few notes about this game. And this is kind of how the drives went. Punt, missed field goal. Punt, end of half. But then in the second half, it really, really got good, Taron. You wait for this. Punt, fumble, punt, field goal, interception, punt, fumble, end of game. So,
It sounds like us on a night out, to be honest with you. So,
Legit, it's you in a nightclub, Taron. It just is you in a nightclub. I think more fumbles and punts, though, when we go out together, bro.
I'm at the end of the game, to be honest with you. So...
Bro, just not a good game to watch. Not a good time to be either a Vikings fan or a Raiders fan. And also, Josh Dobbs the ball, obviously everyone's excited about Justin Jefferson coming back. And he throws up an absolute suicidal pass to him. And he gets absolutely flattened in 2 and ruins your hopes of fantasy this season, Taz. Ruins your hopes. And I think you're in the punishment this year now. It's got to be said.
Number 2 pick he's crumpled, mate. He's got nothing left.
He's got no spine.
Ripped it up, got rid of him. I feel for him. I really do feel for him. But like you said, hospital passes. Nick Mullins comes in, X9 now, so it's going to be an interesting ride for the Cowboys and an interesting ride for Jefferson. Hopefully, it's a ride back, not in an ambulance, but we'll leave that to be seen. But the final game, I think, a game to focus on. And you mentioned it 2-minute drill. I mentioned it in the introduction. See, I'm losing my words all over it. Fumbling. Lost it, mate.
Weaker fumbles.
Weaker fumbles. Tell me about it. And it was also a week where Sean McDermott, the coach of the Bills, had likened team camaraderie to that of terrorists and plots to kill. And I tell you what, they absolutely blew up Mahomes and absolutely blew up their dreams. With the Bills coming back, playing well, getting the result. Talk us through that one, then, because I could not believe that the Bills got that done. I thought the Chiefs were going to bounce back, but there was clearly something in the road. It might have been an attack helicopter, by the way Sean McDermott was talking.
Bro, that's a segue and a half,
What can I say? Gifted.
But But yeah, it was. I kind of predicted it before. Allen always plays well against Mahomes. He always shows up at Arrowhead. And there's been a lot of talk about Josh Allen this season. There's been a lot of hate towards Josh Allen. And yes, he has thrown a turnover in 9 straight games. And he does have the most turnovers over the past 4 years in the NFL. But let me tell you a little story about a quarterback in this league. So this man has 17 more touchdowns than he does interceptions this season. Only one man has a better ratio, and that's Dak Prescott, who's kind of leading the race for MVP. In his career, over the past 4 seasons, he's got 94 more touchdowns than he does turnovers. And in the last 4 years, only Patrick Mahomes himself has more. No team has scored more points than the Buffalo Bills since he was kind of coming into the league. And only the Chiefs have a better record. Over the course of his career, Allen's got 163 total touchdowns, and his team have only punted 174 times. That is absolutely elite.
Yeah.
All he needs is a handful more touchdowns. I believe it's only 5 more touchdowns now to be the first quarterback ever to have 40 total touchdowns consecutively in his first 4 seasons. And when we look at the season that the Bills have had, they were a missed field goal away from winning against Philly, and there were a special teams palaver against Denver away from winning that game when they had 12 men on the field. And I think if those 2 games kind of go through and they get the W, which I think they both deserved in those games, then I think there's 0 questions over Josh Allen and his ability. And I know that a lot of the Bills fans, well, one in particular is going to be listening to this and absolutely craving himself that I'm talking nicely about his quarterback. And he has had his flaws this season, and we're not going to kind of shy away from that. But one thing that he is elite, and people keep forgetting that. He's a very, very good quarterback. And the Bills, they are a good team. And Josh Allen is getting it done. When you get it done against Patrick Mahomes, you can get it done against anyone, even the Patrick Mahomes that we've seen this season. But I think for me, Josh Allen, top 3 QB at the moment in the league, he's cooking. He's cooking a lot, bro.
He is cooking. I think the most surprising thing is seeing what Mahomes was cooking, because we obviously know Mahomes is the most elite quarterback this league we've probably seen in recent years since Brady obviously departed. But also, he's just a man who you think that whenever situations turn bad, he's going to turn up. And, some would argue that he did turn up for the last drive, or you would argue that it was his sort of assets around him that turned up. But then, it gets called back for a flag, which I understand the annoyance in terms of it's an inconsistent call. It's reminded me of everything that goes wrong in the Premier League here in England. Just inconsistency, upsets everyone every single week. It's annoying as hell. But to see Mahomes whinging in that way, I thought Jackson had run onto the field, because I just couldn't understand how you can just act like that when you've been outplayed pretty much in a game. And the fact that he was so upset showed how effective he's been this season with everything that's been going on. Normally he's calm and composed, doesn't matter what's going on. And I wonder why that is. Do you have any thoughts? Because we talked about the assets around him and he needs a bit of help. Do you think it's getting to him now that he isn't being as consistent and as good as he can be, and neither are the team in general?
I think it kind of falls down. We've spoken about it before, but it just is that receiver core. Now he's having a down year, Mahomes, but he's playing around with a lot of young receivers. Obviously, you got the rookie Rice on the edge. Tony obviously kind of causing the flag on the last play, and Mahomes is crying about it. But a foul's a foul. A foul's a foul. I saw one Chiefs fan kind of say that, well, it shouldn't have been offsides because of an illegal formation, but the illegal formation was on the Chiefs. So I really don't know what kind of way you go around it. There was 2 flags in the play. Only one of them was called. But it was an exciting play. 140 left to go ahead. But I wouldn't have put it past Allen to get the job done. And especially at a time where kind of Mahomes hasn't got it done. I spoke a little bit earlier about him kind of just touching over. I think it was around 54% completion percentage. That is not elite. That's not very, very good at all. They're numbers that we kind of expect of the start of the season, sort of Russell Wilson, not of what we expect of Patrick Mahomes. Everyone's kind of been talking about how good he's been over the past 3 seasons, and he's a very good quarterback. He is. He's the best quarterback that we've seen in the NFL over the past 5 seasons. But this season, he's messing around with some young receivers, and he's just not getting it done. He doesn't have the same production that we're kind of used to seeing, and he's not making the plays that we're used to seeing either. And for me, I think there's stronger teams in the NFC, more rounded teams with more talent on offense. And I don't see the Chiefs at the moment, if they're playing the way that they are, going all the way to a Super Bowl because there's better teams around them. I don't know what you think about that, Taz, but the AFC just isn't as loaded as it used to be.
No, it isn't. And the funny thing is we know how many good quarterbacks are in that division, but it's becoming a lot more telling of how the NFL has become a lot more about who's around you. I mean, the fact to me that we've got rookies, we've got undrafted quarterbacks coming in. You look at Tommy DeVito, you look at Zach Wilson, who's been absolutely awful, the number one pick, and everyone's been slating him, but him and DeVito, two opposite flip sides of the coin, are AFC and NFC players of the week. So that's just inconceivable to me, and I think that just shows how just having the most elite quarterbacks in this league doesn't matter anymore. It's the assets that you have around it, and I think I believe this offseason we're going to see some big moves because there's rosters with big stars that need to get out of there because they are sort of struggling with the fact that either they have an elite quarterback and they don't have much else around them, or they don't have an elite quarterback and they've got too much around them. So there's going to be some big moves in this season, and I think the Chiefs need to be one of those teams that keep an eye out on a few of those players and get some players in. Otherwise, we could be talking about a Chiefs team that sort of dies off. Hopefully not in the next few years, but they've been dynamic. But we never know, and it'd be a shame to see Mahomes' legacy ruined by the fact he didn't have the help around him.
Absolutely, mate. And I think we talked about getting the help. Obviously, Rice is going to make a step next year, but even the defense hasn't been getting it done. Chris Jones, he's very, very good as a pass rusher, but he's got, again, nothing else around him. Not much there. They've got a lot of sort of strays from good teams from the past couple of years. I know they've got a couple of Cowboys players in the secondary, and it's one of those teams where they need something else. There's something missing, and it is a star player. It is a star player that they're missing.
Well, shall we move forward to our star players in our fantasy league? We talked about Justin Jefferson. For me, in my fantasy team, he was my number 2 pick overall. He had a good few weeks, but now he's got a hole in his chest and he's left a hole in my heart because I put him in this week. Unfortunately, I think my playoff berth is over for this season. But as I mentioned before, we're looking at a dynasty here. You have to rebuild. You have to look at the star assets for next season. And I think that's what I'm looking at. But I'm also mildly terrified by the forfeits. Elliot, I'm sure you'd be happy to divulge a few of the forfeits which we've come up with in this past week. Maybe censor a few of them as well.
Yeah, I think I absolutely will. This week in our fantasy league has been the week that I've kind of gone around. I've spoken to the league members and I've asked them for one forfeit each. That they're going to kind of suggest for the loser, and all the forfeits are going to be put in a hat and sort of draw. I think next week we're going to draw it, Taryn, as it is the last week of the season next week before we head to the playoffs. You are obviously condemned to the consolidation bracket, so you are one of the 2 managers who may be kind of being put up for these forfeits. And I'll run through a couple, okay, just a couple. My brother suggested to put you in a cage for a few hours and leave you in a park. There was also run the Manchester Half Marathon, which for you, bro, I mean...
Task. Easy, bro. Easy.
What time are you going to go for?
What time does it start?
You fool. My suggestion is just fly to a random country and stay in the airport for 24 hours, then come back. There's a couple more, but we'll save them for if they get pulled out because I don't want to get cancelled in only his 5th pod. So, because, filth. Pure filth.
Wise idea, mate. Wise idea. And
I'm going to
talk to the viewers. If the viewers have any forfeits that they want to offer out to, not particularly me, because, I'm going to win this, final game. But if there's any forfeits you want to add into the mix, we will be picking them out live on air as well. So that might add to the drama. So feel free to comment below and we'll add them into the mix. But Elliot, what about yourself? How did this week go down for you in fantasy?
Not a great week for me this week, bro. I lost the Greenwood Bowl. I've dropped to kind of 3 in the division, but it doesn't matter too much. These games at the moment aren't really mattering too much for me. It's all about seeding, and at the moment, I think I'm pretty much locked into who I'm going to be playing. So last week didn't really matter. Obviously, you want to beat your brother. You want to win every game. My assets didn't really get it done. Obviously, the Dolphins losing. Tyreek not kind of getting 9 million yards like he normally does. Devon Achane not running 47 miles per hour and getting 14 touchdowns didn't help me either. And I also started Josh Dobbs at quarterback, which was probably the worst move of the season. And your team's 5-8. And I think that's how bad of a move it is. I don't know what I was thinking after his 4 interception week. The week before, to a 0-point performance this week. But looking ahead, I'm thinking positively towards the playoffs. I know I'm not going to kind of get punished. I'm not going to get slapped around the face with a fish or anything like that. I'm sat chilling. I'm just positive thoughts, and I'll get it done. What about yourself, Taz? Obviously condemned to the consolidation bracket. What are your thoughts as we kind of get to the season?
Yeah, I mean, I've been trying to tank for a good 5 weeks now. I actually was sat on the toilet today, as you normally do, and looking through all the games that had gone on this year. And some of them, it hurts. The 2-point losses, the 5-point ones, and you look at the 88 points you got sat on the bench. And I always look back to our game. First of the season, never knew what was going on. I think I had Evan McPherson and Dalvin Cook in my team. Cam Akers sat on the bench somewhere, and I was up by about 60, and somehow, by God's awful grace, I managed to lose that game, and I'll never forget that. But I won this week somehow, and I think, when you tank, that's 2 weeks in a row, and that's playing now because one more win out of these 2-point wins, and I had a bit of this little playoff consideration, so it hurts, but at the same time, we're humble, we move, we look after next season, and we're going to be all right. But I do have a few picks for people. And one of those is ignore my picks and just keep your eyes on the waiver wire, because now you've got all these playoff teams who'll be dumping off players who getting rid of those that they don't think are going to be playing in the later stages of the season. And those are the ones you can pick up if you're going late into the season, if you've got a few more weeks before you have your final matchup. So you can pick up some steals. You can get a few absolute bargains, which you never know. 10, 20 points there. And even 1.5 points can make the difference between a win and a loss. So keep an eye on the waiver wires. What about yourself, Elliot? Any thoughts?
One player in mind for me, going up against sort of the Chicago Bears this week, David Njoku. He's kind of found to be a part of to be a mainstay in the Joe Flacco offense, and he's catching balls and he's making good routes. So for me, I think Njoku's a great shout. But I can't believe we've not mentioned it. The CMC trade, we've not spoken about it.
We haven't.
Mental. Like, talk us through that trade, bro. Because you were in the running for him. You were in the running for
this. As I mentioned previously on this podcast, league has been shambles when it comes to trades this season. There's been a lot of illegal backhanded trades. There's been some, Indian spies, I'd like to call them, because it's been outrageous, the hits that have been going on behind the scenes. I'm so getting cancelled for that. But I was offered Christian McCaffrey on a loan to finish out the final weeks of the season, but it would have cost me either £100 or my number 1 pick for the season after. Now, to me, that's not worth it when I had no chances of a playoff. But clearly, the other lad that was in the consolation bracket thought that was a really good deal. So what's gone down now is that Christian McCaffrey has been sent on a 2-3 game loan before the playoffs start for a number 1 first round pick next year for a third, I think. And I just incredible value, absolutely incredible value. What a load of absolute trollop! Because why? And this is why I said it's illegal, and it gets to me how many stupid trades have gone down in this league. And it's priced out as humble in the bottom. But as I mentioned, we'll get an independent commissioner, and God bless, next year, everything will be much better, hopefully.
My thinking behind it is, though, like, even if he does sneak into the playoffs, and he's sat in a spot now, he is sat 4th. So all he has to do next week, if the other lad loses, is he playing you next week as well? Because I know
he's playing the guy who traded away CMC. The guy who beat this week because he didn't have CMC.
I think it's a good week to tell him, maybe trade him back or something like that, and maybe kind of try and get something. But obviously, if he gets to the playoffs, he's going to do nothing because he hasn't done anything all season. McCaffrey's carrying him all week. But if McCaffrey has a bad game, and the other guy turns up, I can see that trade being costly for years to come. But we're talking about dynasties. To make a dynasty, you've got to make smart decisions.
Yeah.
And if it pays off, it looks very, very clever. But if not, he's a silly little boy with egg on his face. And I can see it going that way, to be honest, because behind McCaffrey, there's not much there that's standing in the way of kind of him losing that spot in the playoffs. But it's a very exciting week. It's a nerve-wracking week for those who are on the fringe of that consolidation bracket and of the playoffs. But it's going to be exciting. There's going to be twists and turns, and we're going to be here for it all the way.
We will indeed. And I'm thinking now I might take the hit on going on a date with a blow-up doll if it means I can build my dynasty 5 seasons of NFL. But we'll move on now, and we'll talk about the next round of matchups in week 15. And we know that it's fiery as always, but I think there's a few that we're going to keep our eye on. And something which I don't think we've mentioned as of yet is the fact that Justin Herbert is out for the season. He joins a long list of quarterbacks who have been taking some heavy hits this season. Are out for the long term by the looks of it. And so for that, I think that's the first game we're going to preview this week is the Chargers versus the Raiders, who are playing in the Thursday night football game. We're not picked it because of how amazing it's going to be, but more so because of how crap it's going to be. Because it's going to be two offenses who just don't have it all going on. They have some assets, but not it all there. So what are your thoughts on this one? How do you think it's going to go down then?
Do you remember a game recently in the NFL that was the Raiders versus the Vikings?
Yeah.
I can see it going exactly like that. It's not going to be a good game. Obviously, Quentin Johnson for the Chargers has been dog water all season. He's been absolutely shite. Keenan Allen's the only shining star in that offense now that Herbert's kind of gone. Kellen Moore leaving the Cowboys, kind of going to the Chargers, seeing if he can get it done there. And he hasn't really done much this season. So for me, I can see both backup quarterbacks kind of throwing for under 200 passing yards in this one. And I don't care who wins because I think it's bad viewing no matter who you are, who you're watching. But I don't know. What about you? What do you think about the game?
Yeah,
game.
It's not going to be. Again, I'm very glad that they put these games at stupid o'clock in the morning, so it's not wasting my bloody time. But it doesn't look good. I mean, when you've got the best quarterback with 2 Super Bowl rings sat on the bench and you're playing, an absolutely awful rookie who's just don't look confident, even with the assets in the team. It's the writing's on the wall for this Raiders team. It really is, really is. And so for that, I think the line I'm going to go with this week is that there's going to be under 15.5 points total in the matchup. So I think it's going to be a very low scoring one. And what about yourself? What were you going for in terms of this game? For
me, the line is each quarterback to have under 200 passing touchdowns or under 199.5 if we're going to be pedantic about it. But for me, it's not going to be a game that the quarterbacks or either team is going to really go for. And there's going to be no winners no matter what it is. I think if a team scores more than 10 points, congratulations. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've graduated from college, well done. But I can't see that happening, to be honest. I think it's going to be, like you say, a low-scoring affair. Defenses are going to be hungry, though. So we may see some defensive scores, and that's the only thing that's going to save this game, bro, because it's going to be not good. Not good.
Yeah, I think Max Crosby just got a bit excited somewhere looking at the matchup for this week. So he's enjoying his pre-match warm-up. And what about the next game? There might be a bit of bias going on with the recent selections of big games, or it could just be the fact that they are big games. So what is the selection as our second game to focus on?
It's my team, the Dallas Cowboys, of course. And yeah, it has been a little bit of bias, but the games have been massive recently. And the Cowboys have been getting it done, and so is the team that they're coming up against, the Buffalo Bills. And for me, obviously, Dak Prescott's the MVP of the league. That's not even a question at this point. He's just so good. I don't even know who's in second. I think it might be some sort of like 7th round irrelevant draft pick who's kind of on 900k a year or something like that. No one important. But for me, I think the Cowboys get it done over the Bills. I think they go to kind of winning a load of games on the bounce and a load of really difficult games as well on the bounce. Obviously, kind of Seahawks, Eagles, then the Bills, and I can see them getting it done. So for me, I'm going to have Dak Prescott to put up 30 points against the Buffalo Bills. And Cowboys getting the win as well. And you didn't. And you know what? Your picks recently, bro, they've not been good. You've not been picking the right teams to win. You've not been sort of getting it done in this little, what we call it, the punt playoff picture, something like that. I don't know what we're calling it. I made it. We'll go with that. But I can see my pick coming through. I can see Dak Prescott kind of putting up more points as he takes a greater step towards that league MVP. But what do you think, Mr. Sidhu?
I mean, you've mentioned it there. It's a very interesting game to the release with two quarterbacks who they can either be outstanding or they can be absolutely terrible. And I'm going to err on the side of them being absolutely terrible. And I'm going to go for the fact that both of them are going to have at least one interception. I think there's going to be a lot of passing. There's going to be a lot of ball in the air yards. And I think that I would be more surprised. You know what? I might put it down as a line that one of them is going to get injured because there's a clear fact that if Josh Allen goes for a QB draw, he's getting smacked back to hell, but just differently. So it'd be interesting whether that happens or whether they just sit in the pocket and throw the ball about. But either way, interceptions on both sides.
Bro, I think I'd cry if that went down. I'd be so upset because the Cowboys actually have I've said it for the last few years, but we actually do have a chance of getting a regular season.
You sound worse than me, mate. Sound worse than me.
We actually have a chance this season. Dak's playing the best ball he's ever played. So if he goes down now, I promise you now, tears, just streams and streams of tears are leaving my eyes because the backup that we've got, Mr. Cooper Rush, he's good. But he's not MVP Dak Prescott. And MVP Dak Prescott is what we all want to see. And we want to see him with a ring on his finger. And we want to see him beat the Niners in the NFC Championship game. And that's what we all want. That is, as a league, that's what we all want. And I think that's what I want, especially. I think deep down, you want Dak Prescott to ball out. Don't say that you don't. No, you do. You do.
Just for the podcast. Just doing it for the plot, mate. That's about it.
Behave yourself, boy.
We'll sum up now. We'll close off this week. And we'll head to the sideline, get a few refreshments, and we'll talk about something new to this week in terms of our sideline question being more so about the personnel around the game than maybe the actual players. We saw this week big talk about Tommy DeVito's agent looking like a made man in the mafia, looking straight out of Goodfellas and looking outstanding. Now, the question I'm going to ask is, Tommy DeVito has been cooking. He's doing really well. But I reckon that's because he's got his little wingmen. He's got his little dad on the sideline. He's obviously got his agent there. So when it comes to the NFL, if you could pick anyone to be your wingman in day-to-day life as one, and then your wingman on a night out, who would you decide?
I think, bro, on a night out, it's easy. It's got to be one of the Kelsey brothers. The vibes that they're bringing, they're going to be so chill. They're going to big you up so much. They big each other up when they play each other and stuff like that. Yeah. And do you know what? I'm all for it in my life. I've been put in a hole for too long, and I've been kind of smashed down all my life. And now I'm here, and I want the Kelsey brothers. They're gonna we'll have a couple of beers. I'll buy them a pint, and they'll chat to some lovely lady about how brilliant I am and how much of an absolute legend I am. But what about yourself, Sidhu?
Well, now you mentioned that, I'm thinking, what's the elitist level crop I could put a lure down for? And so looking around the NFL, everyone loves a grizzly bear, and I think there's one big grizzly bear in the NFL who I think, getting the shavings off of what was dropping off out of that could have been crazy. So Nick Bosa, come with me on a night out, my friend. And we'll take the assists, we'll take the little screen passes, we'll take the little 1 yard gains because they could be outstanding. Because that's a beautiful man right there, and he holds it down for our D.
The only thing about Nick Bosa though, bro, is there's been rumors about him, about certain types of people that he likes and that he doesn't like. So you'll have to see what sort of people he is with when you're going a night out with him. I'm not saying he is.
No. But unfortunately, we're both cancelled men, so it's. Maybe that will work even better. And look, I'm not going to say that, actually. Moving on. My day-to-day life wingman, I think it'd have to be Chris Wilkins. I talked about him last week. I butchered his name. I remembered it now. Chris Wilkins of the Dolphins. He's just an absolute shithouse, but he's also absolutely adorable. Again, I will always go back to a clip where he was threatened by saying, "You're going to get it." And he just went, "No, don't say that." But then he also had Derrick Henry's pants down earlier this week when he got called for offside and then went to shake his hand and just like aired him. It was absolutely brutal. To be doing that to the big man in the league, you've got to have some balls on you. And I think having him, he's smooth. He's a little butter man. So I think I'd have him on my side.
Mate, that's a move that's straight from year 5.
I know. He ran it. He ran it, bro.
That's it, bro. Then one thing I do want to say is I don't feel like I need a hype man for real life because I've got you, Taryn, and you hype me up enough. You tell me how brilliant I am every day, and you know, it makes me feel really, really warm inside. And I want to say thank you for that, sir. It's really appreciated.
I have seen some wet things in the NFL. I've seen some wet matchups.
Fuck you, bro. I'm trying to be nice, and then you say things like that. Our friendship is built on lies. It's not even a friendship at the moment. It's literally just we just all we do is this. No. This is just
experience for me, mate. Just work experience. So
work experience, right? Go on.
It's okay. No, I appreciate that. You know what? We do well together. Maybe we're the Kelsey brothers, but based in Manchester and arguably less important. And I'm the more good-looking one. So one of those.
I mean, you call it what you want. But I think you're 3-0 at the moment, aren't you, bro? Something like that. 0-3.
Look, when you're 3-out, you just got to punt it, and we'll punt this and get out of it as fast as possible. And switch to something different. But thank you, everybody, for joining us this week on another edition of the All Out Brits podcast. It's been wonderful as always, Elliot. Thank you for joining me, and thank you everyone else for joining us. And as always, when we send the house, we make sure to keep bringing you back for more. And we hope you'll join us next week when we review everything that went on again, and hopefully add a few more digs at each other as well. We'll see you next time on the All Out Brits podcast.
Peace.